The purpose of a good speaker is to play back a recording as accurately as possible while eliminating as many outside variables as possible. This was my goal while designing these speakers. After going over many design ideas, I decided to go with an open baffle design. This means that there is no cabinet, which allows the rear of the speakers to project in the room, actually further reducing room reflections due to the cancellation of sound waves. I started by cutting out the face of the speaker. I used a single 2x4 of MDF. The reason I went with MDF is because it's very dense, which means there's going to be less unwanted vibrations. After measuring out the MDF, I continued cutting out each individual piece. This is my first attempt at woodworking, and I would consider this a prototype. After cutting out the pieces, I then used a power sander to sand off the edges. In the final version, I would like the edges to be completely spherical, further reducing edge diffraction. After all the pieces were sanded to satisfaction, I then attached them using wood glue. I then used spray paint to finish the cabinet. I used 3 coats of all-in-one primer and metallic finish spray paint. My favorite part about this build was picking out the drivers. I felt it was very important for them to work well together. There are 4 main factors I was considering while looking at drivers: frequency response, Q factor, sensitivity, and impedance. Frequency response was important because I wanted to make sure I could find a good crossover point between the two. Impedance was important because I wanted to make sure these speakers would work well together with the type of wiring I was doing. Sensitivity was important because I wanted to make sure these drivers were very efficient and would work well with the lower wattage amplifiers I planned to use. And Q factor was important because I wanted to make sure that these speakers would perform well without the pressure of a cabinet due to the open baffle design. I decided to go with 4 3-inch tweeters and 3 6.5-inch woofers. I really wanted to go with ribbon tweeters for this build. I felt their transient response was very appealing. For the tweeter, I decided to go with a Dayton Audio PT Mini 6. It's a planar tweeter at 6 ohms. The frequency response is 2900 to 25,000 hertz. It has a sensitivity of 90 decibels and a total Q factor of 1.74. For the woofer, I decided to go with the Jensen SK series, originally used in Jensen's popular C7 3-way tower system. It's a paper cone woofer at 10 ohms with a frequency response of 70 Hz to 5,000 Hz, a sensitivity of 91 decibels, and a total Q factor of 0.76. These drivers will work perfectly for a 4,000 Hz crossover. The next step was to install the drivers. There are 2 tweeters on front and 2 tweeters on back. Each pair of drivers was wired together to act as one driver. Then, the front and back were wired out of phase. This creates a dipole design. The objective of a dipole design is to further reduce room reflections. The woofers were wired in parallel. There was no need for rear woofers because in an open baffle design, the woofers already provide a dipole effect. These speakers also do not have a passive crossover. This means that you will need an active crossover unit to separate the frequencies before the amplifier. Although the Jensen woofers are capable of staying flat down to 70 Hz, these speakers, due to the lack of cabinet, are not able to get very low. I designed them with use of a subwoofer in mind. I plan to get them down to around 120 Hz and have a subwoofer take over from there. I'm already very happy with the way they sound and can't wait to build off this design in the future.